Do you want to stay more focused on the right goals in your life, or even just figure out what the right goals are for you? Do you want clarity? Do you want better work-life balance? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to Success Through Failure.
Welcome to the Success Through Failure podcast, the show that reveals failure as your path to success. You'll listen to intriguing interviews with some of the most successful people on the planet and learn how their failures became a launchpad for success and how yours can too. Here's your host, former Division I All-American wrestler, former Division I head coach, speaker, and personal coach, Jim Harshaw.
Welcome to another episode of Success Through Failure. Today, I bring you Justin Wren. Do you feel out of balance in your life, like your family and your work are your priorities, but you don't have enough time in the day, so you're shortchanging them both? Not to mention wanting to work out more or do more of the things that you love. Are you easily distracted and you want to be able to stay more focused so you can lock in on the most important things that you know you should be doing? You want to be more consistent so you can achieve those goals that always seem just out of reach. Or maybe you feel like you just lack the motivation that it takes to get there. Or maybe you're just not clear on what the right first step actually is. Like every time you're about to take action, you doubt whether or not it's the right action or the right goal. I know the feeling. I've got a wife and 4 kids. I have a job, a rental property, this podcast, not to mention the inevitable challenges that just come up with life, like, illness and struggling family members or car trouble. I've got a lot going on. But when I was a Division I All-American athlete, I was completely locked in. I was focused, I was balanced, and I knew exactly what I wanted and the steps that I had to take to get it. But when I got into the real world, things got a lot more complex. There's just a lot more time demands. Like everything seems to be a priority. How are you supposed to figure out what's the right next step for you? Well, I've developed a system that helps you do just that. Find the balance, the clarity, the focus that you're looking for so you can take your life to the next level. So you can start seeing the dreams that are in your mind as realistic goals and have a plan to achieve them. I've opened a few spots on my calendar for free 30-minute strategy calls so you can take that first step toward the life that you've always dreamed about. Just one simple step, one small commitment that will give you huge results, a simple phone call that will leave you with a plan. If you want this life, if you want to truly have a breakthrough, claim one of the few spots open on my calendar, and I'll share with you the formula that has had people who I work with saying things like one of my recent coaching clients, Frank, who said, "My only regret is that I didn't do this 20 years ago." Or like Isaac, who said, "I love this version of myself the best, and I'll do anything to keep it going." I've got dozens more quotes like that. If you want to feel the same way, go to jimharshawjr.com/apply. That's jimharshawjr.com/apply. Justin has spent much of his life fighting, from a stellar early wrestling career as a prep national champion and junior national champion to becoming a star UFC fighter. Early in Justin's fighting career, he appeared on the Spike reality show, The Ultimate Fighter, cementing his reputation as a dominating force in the heavyweight division, and his current record is 16-2. But many are surprised to find that this 6'3", 265-pound fighter has an even bigger heart. After discovering his faith and following a 6-year struggle with addiction and depression, Justin stepped away from MMA to find God's purpose for his life. And he soon felt called to serve the Mbuti Pygmy people deep in the jungles of the Congo. And while he knew they were an incredibly impoverished people group, he did not know the depths of their pain until he spent time living among them and sharing in their suffering. A turning point in Justin's life is when he was holding a young boy as he died of a water-related parasite after being refused care by local doctors. Justin's story is way too big to summarize in this short bio, so let's just get to the interview. As usual, if you don't have time to listen to the entire episode, or if you hear something you like, but you don't have time to write it down, be sure to grab your free copy of the action plan from this episode at jimharshawjr.com/action. Justin, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. This is exciting.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad you made time for this, man. Your story is incredible. You and I share a background in Greco-Roman wrestling, and then it diverges significantly from there. So tell us, and tell me, and tell the listener a little bit about your background and where you grew up and how you eventually got into MMA.
Well, I grew up in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, not known for wrestling, Texas at all. It's getting there, but not back in the day when I was wrestling. But I got into wrestling because I actually grew up getting very heavily bullied. I'd sit at the lunch table by myself, get pelted in the back of the head with chocolate milk spit wads. I had notorious bullies that planned out very premeditated or methodical, thought out, like the whole school involved bullying that weren't just pranks, as maybe the bully might have thought, but being told in front of the school you're worthless, or you're not good enough, or even you should just kill yourself. It had me start a battle that was in front of my middle school crush, so it just crushed me to have someone say, you should just kill yourself and you're worthless, while she's standing right beside him.
Wow.
And so, man, it was tough. My parents, they tried to get things to change at school and different things, and just wasn't happening. So they had to take me out of the school. But I found wrestling, and that actually gave me an outlet, kind of a purpose or something to focus on, at least a passion, if not a purpose. But
how old were you when you found wrestling?
I was 15. And I actually found MMA when I was 13. So MMA fighting, I found the UFC VHS tapes, and I had those. I hid them. My parents were, I would say, conservative, and they don't want me watching that because at the time it wasn't even allowed on pay-per-view. Even though porn was allowed on pay-per-view, the UFC was outlawed or whatever, it was banned. And when my dad found the UFC tapes hidden underneath my bed at 13, he thought it was a stack of some dirty videos, but it was just the UFC, just the UFC. So anyways, I found that, and that was my childhood dream, to be a UFC fighter. And then whenever they transitioned me out of that school, and one of the reasons was because I thought, well, these guys probably don't get bullied. Whenever I looked at them, these guys probably don't get bullied. And then I fell in love with the human chess match of it. A fellow wrestler and a Greco guy, Randy Couture, that's how he would always explain MMA, is that it's a human chess match. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. And so, fell in love with the sport, got transferred schools. I started wrestling under two guys you'll definitely know the names of, but Kenny Monday and Kendall Cross.
Yeah.
Two Olympic gold medalists and Okie State guys that were NCAA champs. And they just kind of took me under their wing and encouraged me, mentored me. And I don't know, they told me to write down my goals, and I failed. And I love this podcast, Success Through Failure. I failed so many times. Well, in my first year and a half of wrestling, so over 1 year, I won one match by 1 point. And
Wow.
And so it was tough beginnings, but I started to learn quick from some of the best, and to get out you don't develop too many bad habits. I just needed some confidence, and I was too timid out there. I hesitated, and I would telegraph my moves before I would do them because I was just timid, and the guys would be able to throw me around. And I remember one time a guy was pinning me while laughing and just using about one of his hands. And so I was not good at first. And even some of the coaches thought about telling me to quit, that wrestling just wasn't my thing.
Wow.
But yeah, so I know a lot about failure. I'm sure a ton of your guests do, but I've, just like you said, from failing in wrestling, but then like you said in the bio, the depression, the addictions, even what I've been doing in Congo, and the work there, we've failed many times. So, but I think something you learn through the sport of wrestling is just to dig deep and to keep going, and it will only make you stronger, and you'll get to that success point sometime.
So when you started watching these UFC tapes, was there part of you that thought, well, I can't do that. I'm so far away from that. I can't do that. That may be for somebody else, because, at that point in your life, you were, by the way you described it, the opposite of that, and even when you got into wrestling, you had a guy pinning you laughing with one hand. I mean, was there, I think most people would experience that and go, all right, well, I've got so far to go. I mean, some people, may start from average or somewhere in the middle. I've got to start from the bottom, and I've got so far to go. And from the outside in, most people look at someone like you and they go, wow, he, just naturally, had some natural talent, was naturally gifted, had some sort of whatever in your background that kind of gave you a leg up on everybody else. I mean, how did you go from where you were to the top? I mean, you were a national champion and 16-2 in the UFC.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say that I don't know. Wrestling was mine, and I've never really explained it that way, but wrestling was my thing. And my dad had tried to put me in football and baseball and basketball and soccer and all these things that he had done growing up. And my mom was super competitive. And she was a state champion a couple times in tennis and a national champion a couple times in barrel racing. So I came from competitive parents. And my mom was super.
What's barrel racing? I've got to ask.
Oh, barrel racing, horses.
Oh, gotcha.
So horses running around the barrels in the shortest amount of time possible in an arena, and then they dart in and out. And so she was always great and super positive. And then my dad, I love him, but he was the guy on the sidelines that made you not want to be there while you're playing, because of if you made one mistake, you and your team and the other team and everyone in the stands are going to hear about it from the sidelines. And so when I found wrestling, and I quit the other sports because of how overbearing he was and arguments he got into with coaches and parents and silly, ridiculous stuff. And I've never said that publicly, but I think when I found wrestling, wrestling was mine, because my dad had no clue about it, and he couldn't tell me how to do it. If I got off the mat and I lost, he could tell me to quit, but I would ask him, well, what should I have done? Well, he doesn't know. He has no clue. So I'm like, let me figure this out. So wrestling was my thing to go figure out. And I just saw, I don't know, man, when I found the UFC, I was so far away from it, and I was getting my butt kicked. And there were times that I would get off the mats just bloodied and beaten, like literally. The guy was turning me over with a half Nelson one time from Missouri, and this was before I won a match yet. And he just kneed me right in the nose and busted it open, was broken, and just blood everywhere. And, walk off the mat with your head hung low. And I just had some coaches and teammates that would come over and encourage me anyways and say, hey, just keep at it. Just keep trying, write down your goals. And so I wrote down, I had an Olympic gold medalist tell me to write down state champion, and he would make me a state champion by my senior year. Oh. And that made me believe in myself. Obviously, maybe I didn't see it in myself, but he saw it in me. And maybe my dad didn't see it in me, but this coach did. And so by the time I was a senior, I was a national champion. And so it was just something I could commit to, stick to. And it was, I don't know, it was my outlet.
I have a quote that I share. It's actually my own personal quote, but I say, and it's in all of my email address signatures, that says, we all need an unreasonable person in our lives who holds us to a higher standard than we believe that we can attain. It sounds like you had that person or maybe multiple people in your life that, that were outside of your father, that did that for you. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a beautiful quote. I love that. And I need more of that in my life. But I do have a great team around me, but just, you could always use more people like that, and or at least one that really keeps you accountable and pushes you. And I had that in Kenny Monday, had that in Kendall Cross, had that in another coach named Alan Roger. And then I had it in some teammates. I was surrounded by these teammates that I went to Bishop Lynch High School, and it was the only team in Texas, I think, and probably still, that ever got second in the country at nationals for wrestling, or ranked second in the country. And and the team was chasing that title. They were chasing that title, and I didn't want to be the guy to hold them back. And, the duels always came down to the heavyweight matches and everything else. And, the first year I lost and lost and lost. And the team couldn't depend on me. And I decided right then after that year that, next year they are going to be able to depend on me. And then junior and senior year, every single match that came down to the heavyweight, it didn't matter if it was like, hey, you need a tech fall. Hey, you can't get 1 point scored on you. Hey, you have to get a pin. I would go out there and get whatever our team needed to win.
And Justin, there's so much to your story. I may have to have you on another time because this is your story is just fascinating. So let's go from wrestler figuring things out. You get into MMA and you have this successful career and everything's going well. And then you left the sport for a while. Why?
Well, I left the sport for 5 years and 2 months to be exact. But the reason I did that, I left on a 3-fight win streak. And I think I left at 13-2, or 12-2, something like that. 12-2, 13-2. And I left because I went through a 6-year, probably a 10-year battle with depression on and off, but 6 years fully battling depression and addiction. That childhood dream became a reality, but I would say it turned into a nightmare real quick. And I was dumbfounded, I was shattered by it because, I was getting paid to do what I love for a living. And like, you've competed internationally in wrestling, and I had to wrestle in Moscow. I kickboxed in Amsterdam. I was the main event at the Hard Rock Casino in Las Vegas. Fought in front of 6.8 million people. I would get, people behind the counter at the grocery stores would follow me up and down the aisle and ask me for a picture. And so like I had the stuff that I thought would make me happy and fulfilled. And yet, like, I don't know, every time I would get my hand raised, I would literally, while my hand was getting raised, before my comeback, I could challenge people. And I've done this with a friend. He's like, no, I remember you smiling after a fight. And I go find a picture, go find a video. And he couldn't do it. And as I would get my hand raised, I would think, is this it? Is this all? And I would think, isn't there more? Or no, I would think, what's next? I would think, what's next? Why isn't, and I instantly I'd just go and either, fighting's a roller coaster ride. So if you win, time to celebrate. And if you lose, it's time to numb yourself. You fight twice a year, maybe 3 times a year. And you put everything in that year into these fights. Sometimes you fight 1 time a year. And so you put all your energy, everything focused around that fight. And if you fight and you lose, you're crushed. And so, for most fighters. And so, that was me. It was a roller coaster ride. And if I won, it was time to celebrate and party. And if I lost, it was time to numb myself. And I remember after an 8-week-long binge, I had many, many of those, but 8 weeks, don't remember really a thing.
Binge on.
What's that?
You binged on what?
Oh, binged on. I thought you said John. I was like, I don't know John. Sorry. But I was binging on, mainly opioids, like lots and lots of Oxycontin, and then drinking a ton, and then cocaine, lots and lots and lots of cocaine, just anything that was available. I mean, I've tried a ton of stuff. And in those binge times, I don't know everything that I did. But those were probably my 3 main things. And
so it sounds like you tried to fill the void with, you thought winning would fill the void.
Right.
And I heard, for the non-wrestler listeners, Jordan Burroughs, he's an Olympic gold medalist as well, talking about, when he won his Olympic gold medal, there was still, the hole was still there. And so you were trying to fill this gap with championships, with winning, with getting your hand raised, and that didn't work. And it sounds like then you tried filling it with drugs and alcohol, and that didn't work. Yeah,
absolutely. And I guess probably the low point, or one of my biggest failures, was getting a voicemail from my best friend. And I had something like probably 70, 80 voicemails during this 8 weeks. And lots of them were from him. And I just listened to the most recent one, and it was 8 minutes long. That was before they had that cutoff time limit. And anyways, I got maybe 8 seconds through it, maybe 10, 12. And he said, I can't believe you missed my wedding. I can't believe my best man didn't show up.
Wow.
And so I turned right back to the drugs. That's rock bottom. And I turned right back to it. And then when I came back to, I was having a scary moment, like an overdose kind of experience. And yeah, so it was nuts. And then I got to the Congo. I think you asked that whenever I started in this. And I left the sport because, I found something truly fulfilling. I found something worthwhile. I found something with purpose and passion, and it was people. It was the Mbuti Pygmies.
And how did you find that? Like, so fill in that part of the story for us. So how do you go from, MMA, very, very successful, celebrity status, really, MMA fighter in the UFC, achieving all your dreams, and then, to this binge of drugs and alcohol to the Congo and finding your passion there? Yeah.
So, for me, a big foundation of my life, probably the biggest is my faith. And I don't push that on anyone else, but just for me, it was the game changer, the lifesaver. And I just say, God loved the hell out of me and has continued to bless the mess out of me. And so I wanted to do something. Life was all about me before. And then I discovered, like, hey, life's not about me. Life's about so much more. And so for me personally, it's loving God, loving people, and pushing back darkness. It's fighting the good fight. It's fighting for people. It's like our nonprofit's name or our initiative. It's Fight for the Forgotten. And I started working slowly on that, just kind of started getting moving. You can't steer a parked car, but I wanted some purpose. I wanted to get involved. I wanted to live a life not about myself. And so I started at a children's hospital, and then I started a youth group, then I started a drug rehab center, and then I was at a homeless shelter for a while, helping people, and just tried to, anywhere I could volunteer, I would volunteer. And I just had my head on a swivel, looking to try to make a difference with this one life that I get to live. And so, 11 months, I stepped away from fighting because for a year, I said, I'm going to sacrifice fighting for a year. I'm going to deepen my foundation, me and my faith, but me and my sobriety, and just focus on important things in life, which are people and relationships. And so in that year off from the sport, I didn't get a paycheck, but I helped at a lot of different places. But then I wanted something more. And it's a really long story, but to sum it up, I had, it's going to sound crazy without explaining it, but I was basically, and I know it sounds nuts, I felt like a crazy person for 3 days anyways, I almost am embarrassed to say it, but it was just the most real thing that's ever happened to me. And that didn't happen. And so, in wrestling, you go through visualization drills, and you try to see the match in your mind, and 100 times before you get out there and you do it, or 1,000 times. Well, this I didn't try to conjure up. I didn't try to have some sort of visualization, but I basically, it was so simple, but I was in this place where I needed direction, and I was jobless, and I was helping people, but I still wasn't helping in a way that I saw as very sustainable or long lasting, for the people I was helping or for myself. And I wanted something more. And I just said a quick prayer and said, God, what do you want me to do with my life? But I said it from a place that I think was like of depth, or just like I needed to hear something or know something, or, and man, dude, I was lit up with this vision. I saw myself in the rainforest. I was walking down a footpath. I heard this drumming. I break into a clearing, and all of a sudden I see these people, and my heart just had such, like, I don't know if I'd say compassion, but my heart broke for him, because I saw this first man I saw, he had his ribs poking out, and he was coughing, like almost coughing up a lung. And I knew he was sick and poor and oppressed, and that he was hungry and thirsty, that they had no clean water, and that they were enslaved. I knew that in the vision, that these people were enslaved. And the thing that wrecked me the most was I felt like their identity was forgotten, like that they felt forgotten as a people. And I came out of that vision, bro, and I cried a puddle, a small, I'm doing it with my hand. it was bigger than a silver dollar, at least. I don't know, like a little grandma cookie size. I don't know how to explain that, but puddle on the ground, and I was on my knees and on my forearms, and I was just sobbing, bro. And I've never cried like that in my life. Before that, being a tough fighter guy, I was always like trying to look tough, be tough, fight on my own strength, and don't let anyone see weakness. And man, this just changed me. It wrecked me. And 3.5 weeks later, that's a long story, but 3.5 weeks later, I was in the Congo, and I was with the Pygmies.
Wow.
In that vision, I was walking down a footpath and heard drumming as we got close. And as the clearing came up, we started hearing singing, and we got in, and first guy I meet, ribs poking out, find out he has tuberculosis. He's coughing up a lung.
Wow.
And I got accepted as family with the Pygmies. And I have a name so over the last 6 years, lived there for about 2 years. So it's been first time was kind of a scout trip. And on that trip, a scouting trip is like, it doesn't make much sense, but that's how I explain it. Like, I just wanted to go and see and meet them and see, are these like the people from this vision? And the chief even pulled me aside the first day I was there and said, everyone else calls us the forest people, but we call ourselves the forgotten. And that word forgotten was just so stuck out to me. And so it was from the vision. I had told a friend that came with me, and he's like grabbing my shoulder saying like, bro, this is your vision. I'm like, I don't know. I didn't know how to grasp it. I still kind of don't know how to swallow it. That like I saw it before it happened. And anyways, my name there is Efeosa Mbuti Pygmy. And Efeosa was the name like my immediate family that adopted me in, Chibusiku and Manu and Sambalina and Jelawa and Bajanji and Bawanja. They gave me those names. And
wow.
And Efeosa means the man who loves us. And that was after I held Andibo, and after we dug his grave, and after we, buried him. And
that's the boy who I mentioned in your bio that died in your arms.
Yeah, and it was just because of dirty water. And it absolutely forever gripped my heart. And
you end up living with these people for a while, am I right?
Yeah, and everyone else, so they call me Efeosa, and the other Pygmies and people surrounding them, they call me Mbuti Pygmy. And so my fight name used to be the Viking, but the Pygmies are, on average, their height's only 4'7", and so they're a bunch of little dudes, great big hearts, but little guys. And Mbuti Pygmy just means the big pygmy, and so that's what everyone calls me there, is the big pygmy. That's my Instagram and my Twitter name, the big pygmy, and it's Pygmy. And man, I just love them. I've become family with them. I take it very, very serious. We've gone through life together, and I feel like that first trip I went and saw, but it's one thing to hear about it, it's another thing to see it, and you can kind of have the head knowledge there, but you have the heart knowledge or the understanding, a deeper understanding whenever you live it with them. And so that was my goal, to go back. And I lived there for a full year at one time, and got super sick, had malaria 3 times, almost died the first time, lost 33 pounds in 5 days.
Wow.
Was vomiting blood and bile, so red and green, but not good Christmas colors. And it was brutal, man. But people wanted me to come home when I was sick, and my wife, obviously, and my fiance at the time, and my mom. But I was just like, look, like, I'm getting treatment, like, I'm getting medicine. This is my opportunity to learn and understand and grow, and it's not going to kill me. I didn't know that it almost did, but I had I don't know. It just allowed me to understand what they go through on a day-to-day basis, and they don't have the medicine to treat themselves.
And you wrote a book, Fight for the Forgotten, and I'm on your website right now, and the sort of subtitle under the main page here says, "Defend the weak, love the unloved, empower the voiceless." And that's what you're doing with the Mbuti Pygmies, and it sounds like kind of where you were when we started this whole story, a few minutes ago. You talked about being bullied and just struggling. And I feel like that's kind of where you were, and you're providing that for others. I mean, do you see it that way? Or, I mean, this seems to really have grasped you, and you found this as your passion.
Yeah, no, I would say yes. If I had to explain the pygmies in a way that, I don't know, a kid would understand, it would be, they're the most bullied people on earth, the most overlooked, or looked down upon. And I mean, when Andibo died, it was because he needed $1 for the pills, and they told his mother, who had already lost her husband and already lost her other son due to waterborne disease. And so it was just her and Andibo. And they told Mama that you're too dirty to come in here. We won't treat you. And so turned her away. The second time, he needed a more drastic treatment, which was just a one-shot cure. So not the pills, but one-shot cure. And it was $3. Well, they were slaves, so they had never been paid in money, but they came back with 2 dozen eggs, a chicken, firewood, charcoal, and they were able to basically beg and scrap up like $3.50 of Congolese franc, and came back to the hospital, and were there, and the doctor came out this time. The nurse told her she was too dirty to come in, and this time the doctor came out and told him the real reason, which was, we won't waste our medicine on a pygmy animal.
Wow.
And so turned him away. And so, but what I guess, that's some brutal stories, and it adds a lot of fuel and fire to the fire. But
now, and did I read these people are even cannibalized at times? Is that right?
Yeah. So the rebel groups there believe that if they can hunt, kill, cook, and eat the pygmies, whenever they go into battle, they will be not invincible, but the bullets will fly right through them. And so it's just some crazy belief they have. And so, I've met a guy who watched that happen to his nephew, and it was just brutal. And so, but man, I would hate to not get into some of the great stuff that's going on, because
sure, please.
We have a team of 20 guys there that are born and raised, men and women, that are born and raised in Congo, that we've gotten to come alongside and empower and put the tools in their hands, the training, the knowledge, I guess, in their heads, and to send them out and let them be the change they want to see in the world. Allow them to be the answer to their very own problem. And so we've been able to empower the people that suffer from the water crisis the most. And those guys they're drilling right now water well number 64 and water well number 65 simultaneously. We've gotten back 3,000 acres of rainforest. It's now protected for the Mbuti Pygmies. They will own that for generations and generations, just pass it down. Strongest thing in Congo courts, from the state level, the local, the state, and the national level. And it's just amazing to see some of the stuff that's going on, the farming initiatives. And if people want to see some of these videos, just go onto the website, fightfortheforgotten.org, or go to YouTube and just search Justin Wren. And if you get to my YouTube page, you can see like these stories of transformation, whether it's Mama Mariamo, who just has a tragic story of losing 5 of her 7 children due to waterborne disease. And now from going and living with them and listening to them and learning from them, and as a community, as a tribe, as a village, coming up with the best way to love them, that village decided we want to put the water well closest to Mama Mariamo. And so her and her 2 kids that are surviving are 20 footsteps outside of their water well. And even though I don't know if I said this, but she actually is blind. She lost her eyesight due to river blindness. And so having that well 20 footsteps outside of her front door of her hut, twig and leaf hut, sleep on the dirt, the fire is their blanket. I've never met a Mbuti Pygmy out of thousands that ever owned a blanket. And so it's the fire that's their blanket. Wow. And so just come alongside them and saying, hey, how do we come up together? How do we work together? And I love this Swahili proverb that they taught me. And it's, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And so that just is so rich to me. Yeah. It's so true. Like we gotta do things together to advance and go as far as we can. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And so man, we're doing this campaign on our website for Water 4. And so Fight for the Forgotten's for the Pygmies and in the Congo. But I'm only one of 44 teams under Water 4. So it's water4, the number 4, .org. And we have this campaign called Dig Deeper. And so it's water4.org/dig deeper. And these guys from Uganda literally risked their lives to come teach me and my team how to drill wells. They had drilled over 100 water wells. In Uganda and Congo, they don't like each other, especially at the governmental level. And the LRA, the Lord's Resistance Army, has gone from Uganda, just striking the country with terror and making child soldiers and children as wives and just terrible, terrible things, to now they have gone into the Congo and they've whittled away, but they were just doing even worse stuff in Congo. And these guys, young men drillers, they had left Uganda and they had been all lost family members. My buddy Patrick was one of 3 guys to survive from his village. B-Tech was a child soldier. He's their team leader of our Ugandan team. And he was actually made a child soldier for the LRA. Wakes up every night in night terrors. But yet during the day, he's the one changing his country from the inside out. And so they came and lived with our team in Congo. They taught us how to drill wells. We failed about 9 of our first water well attempts. And it took them to come in as reinforcements. Wow. They had so much experience. They trained us on how to drill the wells, how to get those wins under our belt. They lived with us for 3 months. They almost died on their first day there. And so we started this campaign to go and support them. We're going to help them in a village called the Cho, give water to 5,000 people. We're going to set up these water vending kiosks where people can come up to the water wells, but then they actually pay 5 cents for 5 gallons. And that way it's like participatory, where it's not just giving charity, it's actually giving an opportunity to the local community, giving them jobs, charging for the water 5 cents for 5 gallons or 20 liters. And then that goes into investing in to repair if it ever breaks down, and to drill more wells in the future for the locals. And so, man, I love it, man. It's so incredible to be part of this kind of movement.
And so for the listener, Justin just mentioned a lot of links, his YouTube channel, his website, his book, and I'm going to have all the links for everything in the action plan at jimharshawjr.com/action. So if you didn't catch any of that, plus his Instagram and Twitter, et cetera, I have links to everything there in the action plan. So Justin, before we let you go, can you share, you've definitely found something that drives you. I mean, so many people are looking for something that they can be passionate about, something that they can really grab a hold of, because in this world there's so many things that we can latch onto that are not good, they're not healthy, or they're selfish. But you've found something where you're giving back and it just drives you every day. It's amazing. Can you share maybe some tips, tactics, thoughts, advice that the listener can take in the next, let's say, day or two, 24 to 48 hours, to start moving towards that kind of life that you have that's really driven by something deep inside them, some deep passion?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know why this just popped in my head, but I think there's an Aristotle quote that says, "No act of kindness ever goes wasted." And so I would say just start there. I think there's so many times that we could reach out and do something kind for someone else. And we miss those opportunities every single day. And if we just have our eyes open, and if we're looking for those opportunities, head on a swivel, looking to reach out to just lend a hand, to give a word of encouragement, to help somebody out. That for me is what led me to do this now. And it was baby steps, and then it continued to grow. And so the way that you told me on your email, kind of what you sign it with, and mine I sign with, or when I signed the book, it says, "Live to love, love to live." And I know that can sound cheesy. It can be short and sweet or whatever, look cute, even though I'm the big fighter guy. But live to love, I think all of us get it mixed up. We get it backwards. We want to love to live. We want to love our life. And we're always struggling and fighting and trying to grit it out and figure out why don't we love this life that we live? Why am I depressed? Why am I sad? Why am I not fulfilled? And it's like, I think that if we just look to love people, to fight for people, and so if we live to love, we will love to live. And so, but you have to have it in the right order. And I think it comes first, just live to love people.
Justin, you just changed a lot of people's lives by doing this interview. Thank you. I mean, incredibly inspiring story. Thank you. Thanks for making time to come on this show. Thanks for what you're doing. Thanks for the impact you're making on the world. And a lot of people are going to be, I think, rethinking how they go about their days and how they go about their life after hearing this. So thank you, Justin.
Hey, thank you so much. This has been an incredible opportunity and big blessing for me personally. So thank you so much.
And for the listener, I will have links, like I said, in the action plan to everything that Justin just talked about. If you want to get involved with water4.org, you can check it out there. You can check out Justin's team. You can see how you can get involved. So I encourage you to check that out, water4.org. Fight for the Forgotten, again, is his book. And again, I'll have links to everything here in the action plan. Go to jimharshawjr.com/action to get your hands on that. And until next time, take the time to get clear on your goals and embrace failure as a stepping stone on your path to success.